Welcome back to my channel. I'm going to tell you some of the things I did in desperation to try to save my house. It's kind of funny, actually. First I thought I'd drive Uber. I had this fancy car. I thought, well, I'll get a lot of money driving my Tesla for Uber, right? So I had a Model S, red. I signed up for Uber. I was all excited about it, and then I was due to get the Model X. I thought, wow, if I take delivery on the Model X, I'll get even more money. So I'll take delivery and then I'll start driving for Uber. So I went to register my Model X with Uber, and they said that I couldn't drive for Uber because they felt like the gull wing doors were scary for people. They wouldn't know how to get in and out of the car. So they said absolutely not. They didn't want me to drive for them. So I never got to drive for Uber after investing the time of going through their orientation. So I posted my frustration on a Tesla Facebook club that I belong to. And it turns out one of the guys who was also an owner of a Tesla was the CFO for Lyft. And he said, well, come on over and drive for us. So I signed up for Lyft and I went through the orientation for Lyft. Here, I'm a stay-at-home mom. I haven't worked in 30 years. I'm just getting back to the workforce. My husband had died. I'd been through this abusive relationship. I just got divorced. I had PTSD because I was afraid the guy was trying to kill me still, you know. And so this was an appropriate job for me to ease my way back into work, right? So I sign up for Lyft, and I go for the first day to drive for Lyft in my Model X, which is a very expensive, valuable car. And these people who are getting in and out smell like smoke, and I don't know what kind of people they are. And I thought, well, I have to do this because I have to pay for my house. So I accepted every single request for a ride I got for Lyft. And I spent the entire day just driving for Lyft. And it was really going good. Some people, I was uncomfortable with them in the car. It was hard to have a conversation, you know, it was a little weird. But by the end, I was getting really more relaxed. And the last lady wanted this trip all the way across town. And I thought, wow, I'm going to make a lot of money on this trip. So I'm driving all the way across town into this very bad part of town. And she asked me to drop her off at this warehouse, which was really weird. So I dropped her off. And I looked down at my phone and I got $25 for a tip, I thought. I saw this $25. I'm like, wow, that's a good tip. So then I'm going to get another ride, and I'm trying to reset the app, and I started realizing, no, she didn't tip me at all. That $25 is my total for the day. So I had spent an entire day. I got $25, and all the wear and tear on my car, and the weird people coming in and out, and all the need for cleaning. And I thought, this is ridiculous. This is like $1 an hour. It's a couple dollars an hour maybe. So I had to come up with another way to make money. So I started an online business. I found, I was going to Tesla to get my car fixed, and the guys were cleaning my car with waterless car wash, which I had never seen before, and I was really freaked out thinking they were scratching it because I was really careful about my car. And they explained to me that it's better for your car. And I was having a lot of frustration with car washes too, because they were using crappy towels, and I was getting my rims scuffed up. So I decided to sell this online. So I started a company called TeslaChick, and I sold waterless car wash. And we were running it out of my house. So I bought in bulk, and I resold it at a reasonable price. So that meant I had to buy everything in bulk to make a profit. So I had pallets full of boxes delivered to my house. So here's this house that I'm trying to save, right? It's already full of a lot of clutter. And now I have pallets of boxes coming in, of boxes of waterless car wash, boxes of leather lotion that you use on the interior. I have barrels of detergent, and the kind you pump in, you have to bottle it yourself. And labels, boxes of labels. And so I'm stacking these around the house, right? And that went pretty good, but it made the house pretty much unlivable. And then I had the bottom floor of the house, I had remodeled it into an Airbnb. I was going to have an Airbnb. So it was beautiful. I spent a lot of money fixing it up, making it perfect so that it would be like a very luxurious Airbnb. And I started telling my friends on the Tesla social clubs about the Airbnb I was going to open, and they were all eager to come. And I was a little scared of my ex-husband, but I was thinking that having people in the house would help. So I was not so scared of all the strangers that would be coming through. So I had this, the nanny of my children, who is the godmother of my children, who was one of my best friends because she was there for me when my husband was abusive. And she was supportive of me, and she knew the right things to say to me when everybody else just told me, you should leave him, not understanding how difficult it is when you have somebody who says they're going to destroy you if you ever leave them, or who has their fingers in all of your financial, or who's a hacker and is watching your every move. You know, it's kind of hard to leave people when they're manipulative like that. So my maid, my nanny, Marcella, became my best friend because she'd been through that. She actually fled her country to come to the US so that she could be away from this abusive husband she had. She understood, you know, we sometimes had trouble communicating in the same language, but we could pantomime pretty well, and we could talk a lot, and she got really good at English, and I got so-so in Spanish, and we really became like sisters. So she had to go back to Mexico because she was sick, and she was getting medical care there, but her sister was coming up for a visit. And they asked, well, can she stay in your new apartment that you have? And I thought that's great. You know, she had her whole family, her kids I'd met before, her husband I trusted. It felt safe to have them in the house. So I said, come on up and stay in my future Airbnb. And then they stayed for a couple weeks, and they were having trouble finding an apartment that was affordable. And I said, why don't you just stay in my apartment and I'll give you a reasonable rent. Hi. I'll charge you a reasonable rent. And he was a handyman, and she could be like a maid to me if she wanted to make a trade. And so this is Little Miss. She's my grumpy cat. So I kind of made a deal with them to stay. So I basically didn't make the money I expected on Airbnb because I charged less, but it was a steady income. And I had the safety of having people in my house at all times, and a man living downstairs that I trusted that could, you know, be around to maybe kind of scare off my ex a little bit. And there were always people home, you know, and it made us feel good. And we became friends, and we'd trade meals. You know, they'd come up and I'd cook something for them, and then they wouldn't like it, their kids wouldn't like it, but they would be nice and say, oh, it's good. But they didn't have the same taste as me because they just came from Mexico. So anyway, I had these new friends, but that kind of failed as a business because it was like a rental business, but I charged such a low amount for the rent. I kind of shot myself in the foot, but I really wanted them to stay. So that's what I offered them because it felt safe, and it was safe for my kids to have another family living with us. So I did that. Now my house the bottom floor is taken. The middle floor is full of pallets of boxes everywhere. I had another business idea, and I ordered a whole bunch of stuff, but then I got so busy because then I got a job. So in my divorce, I had kept meticulous spreadsheets of all my money to prove that it was mine, my inheritance. I never commingled it. I really kind of outsmarted my ex that way, but it turned out I ended up having to pay him off because it doesn't matter who's right or wrong if the one person is so unreasonable that they're not going to let it go, and they're going to force you to go through divorce proceedings that are going to go on forever, and you're going to end up paying hundreds of thousands of dollars to attorneys and specialists. So basically I lost because I paid him off to leave me alone, even though I could have won a court case that never went to court because it was dragging on, and that's what he wanted. He said he would ruin me if I ever left him, and he tried really hard, but he didn't ruin me. I'm fine. Just don't have the money anymore. So I had done these meticulous spreadsheets and impressed the forensic accountant that was hired to do my case. And they said, oh, you should be a forensic accountant. And I started getting desperate for money. So I called them up and I asked if I could maybe come work for them. And I ended up getting pretty much close to minimum wage when I started, because I'd been out of the workforce for 30 years. I was a housewife. I had no resume. And I'm old, you know? So who wants to hire me? Somebody told me anybody over 50 who's a woman basically is considered unhireable by Social Security, and they don't even have to present a case to say they're having trouble getting a job. Social Security just agrees and pays them. Then I was trading stocks. My ex-husband said I was an expert stock trader and wanted me to support him for the rest of his life. So I made an effort to prove that no, I was basically spending my principal. But after my divorce was final, I thought I'd try my hand at trading options. Options are sort of like stocks, but 10 times the profits and 10 times the losses. Well, actually, the losses are pretty much infinite if you're wrong, but it's 10 times the profit if you're right. I'll do a whole segment on how to... I'm actually going to do a channel called the Call Girls Investment Club, because I started this club for my friends. It's called the Call Girls Investment Club because we trade call options. Hey, kitty. Hi. I'm rich because I still have my cat. I have cats. Don't tell them. Okay. Shh. So I had watched Tesla stock go up and down and up and down. They were really an embattled stock, and I had seen them go to 275 and then down to 200 and then to 275 and down to 200. And I was watching how this was proceeding. Basically, the short sellers were manipulating the price by releasing these false news stories to try to drive the price down. Well, they'd short sell, they'd sell, then they'd drive the price down, then they'd release the worst possible news they could come up with, and then they'd buy it back that day. And I started seeing this pattern, how that would happen. And I could recognize when it was the worst possible news. And I could recognize when they were starting to get in the market. And I started riding along with them. So basically I was selling. This started when I was buying and selling stocks. I first came back into the stock market. And I'd see they were selling here, and they were driving the price down, and I'd buy. I could recognize the actual day when it was bottoming, because it was always these same signals. So 2 or 3 times I rode it up, and then I'd sell it, and I'd ride it up, and then I'd sell it. And it wasn't enough, because the fact is, on stocks, you're making like from 200 to 275, that's only about 35% profit. So it's you know, even $10,000, if you had $100,000, that's $35,000. That's a lot of money, but it wasn't enough for me at that time, because I was in quite a bit of debt by that point.